We probably all know the phrase, patience must have her perfect work. And there are so many times when we don't give ourselves the grace of patience, where we are hard on ourselves, we are impatient with ourselves, we beat ourselves up because we didn't do it right, or we judge ourselves because we think we should have done it the way the person next door did it, or the other person who had this demonstration did it. Well, they prayed and they had this wonderful working out of something, so why can't I? And we get into a personal condemnation of who we are. We're not good enough. We don't know enough. We haven't done it well enough. All of that stuff, it's all from that place of impatience. We have the opportunity to have patience with our understanding of ourself. Because if we know that we are the perfect children of God, if we know that the Creator has created us perfect, Genesis 1, always go back to Genesis 1, God's not seeing us in a way that says, hurry up. We're already complete. We're already done. It's like we're already cooked. It's already, the cake has already risen. We're already done. So what is it in that gap between where we think we are and our impatient sense of hurry, hurry, hurry to get to where we think we want to go? There's a belief that we're not already there. So let's look at what does it take to be patient with ourselves. Now, I'm kind of flipping between sort of absolute and relative, as I just sort of talked. So there is a bit of a challenge in that. We need to look at the absolute, and we need to hold that before our gaze, always. But let's talk a little bit about what does our path look like when we are working things out in thought, and we are grasping the ideas and the understanding and leveling up our understanding of something, going from sort of that like blind faith to enlightened faith and hope to understanding and casting off the beliefs that we've held about ourselves as we go through that process. So having patience during that period, and it doesn't, and I very specifically didn't say time, because it's not time, it's thought. It's the progression of thought. That's what's going on. But we need to have patience with ourselves. God loves us no matter what. So when you look at that Bible story of the woman, the widow woman, right? And Elisha comes and the bondmen are going to come and take away her sons. And she's like, oh my gosh, I have no money. I can't pay the tax. What do I do? Elisha comes and says, how can I help you? And he asks her a question. What do you have in the house? She says, well, I have a pot of oil. That's all I have. And he says, well, go borrow vessels. Borrow not a few, meaning go borrow a lot. Go borrow a lot of vessels and bring them home and shut the door and pour out. Now let's look at that in terms of patience. Well, there are a couple of things going on in there. But one, he asks her when she says, I don't have anything. They're taking my sons. They're taking what I have as my dear sons, and they're going to come and take them away. He says, what do you have? Well, I have a pot of oil. So what do you have in the house? What is it that is of value in your thought about yourself? Do you value who you are? Are you inspired by who you are? Do you have that inspiration? Are you filled up with that inspiration about who you are, about all the good that you've been given, and all the qualities, the pure and perfect qualities that you've been identified with, that is part of your identity? Do you appreciate those? Do you value those? Do you see them as an asset? Are you patient with the growth and understanding of who you are? So she's asked to go borrow. Now, what does that take as an individual who doesn't feel so good about themselves or their worth or what they have to offer, to go borrow from others? That takes a lot of humility to say, I really need some support here. It takes a lot of humility. And he says, borrow not a few, meaning she had to do that over and over and over again. And what could come up in that process? When she went to the first neighbor, it's like, okay, that might have been fairly easy. But if she had to do it with 20 neighbors, how difficult would that be? To humble oneself, to say, I need to see a greater sense of myself so that I feel worthy of doing that. How do you see me? Have you ever done that with people that you know? Asked for honest feedback and said, how do you truly see me? And let them shower you with wonderful compliments. Let them see you. Can you see yourself through their eyes, where they say, I really love this about you, and I love that about you, and how many of us could sit and absorb the love of another and truly see the good in ourselves, truly see the value that we already have within, so that we could start expressing that and pouring that out? That we could, okay, there's so much abundance here. There's so much that I've gained by humbling myself and asking for support, that I now feel filled up and I can continue to pour out and express the inspiration that I've gained from this experience. And how many of us have patience with that process? If the woman had said, oh, I can't ask for anybody to give me a pot, an empty pot. I'm not worthy of asking that. And she sat in her house for 3 weeks and wouldn't do it. How many of us have done that? Obviously this is symbolic, but how many of us have done that? We've closed ourselves off and we've gotten stuck in the view of ourselves that is limited, instead of humbly saying, I'm willing to see the glory that is within me. I'm willing to just accept that I have been made perfect, that I have been made full and complete. How many of us don't accept that? Or don't have the patience to let the Christ truth consciousness uplift our thought to the place where we can see the glory of our individuality and be willing to express it and pour it out, because that's where the abundance sits. That's where abundant life sits. Are you cutting yourself short because you're not patient with the process? I know it sounds like a little bit of a disconnect, but patience must have her perfect work. So being willing to say, I'm going to engage in the process of being challenged to be humble, of being challenged to put myself out there, of being challenged to ask for support. I actually like the idea of support, not help, because support, it really is that place of someone else sees who you are in places where you might not see yourself clearly. Someone else can hold up the mirror and show you all of the glory of who you are and say, yep, you can do this. And step forward on that path. Have patience with the process, that science, these divine laws, do have an effect. It's not something that it's a one and done. If it didn't work in the first hour, then oh well. Patience must have her perfect work. So these divine laws have an effect on you when you appeal to them and you apply them in your life and you recognize that, yes, this is what's true, and I'm going to keep coming back to it. I'm not giving up. I'm going to be patient with the process. I know that there is a result that is good. Patience must have her perfect work. So we are devoting ourselves to that idea that we can engage in this process and we can be patient and we can know that there's going to be a good result. There's no question about that. And there's actually, as you engage in this, as you devote yourself to it and you cast off whatever the beliefs, I'm going to go back to the widow woman for a moment. Just imagine, well, you can imagine, put yourself in whatever position you're in where it seems like there's a long road ahead and this is a big struggle. What is it that comes up for you in those moments? And what is it that you need to do in thought to overcome them in those moments? Finding the level of humility, casting off that belief about yourself just for a moment. You can always go back and believe it later if you want. If you really want to, you can pick it up again. But just casting it off for a moment. Cast off the belief and allow space for truth to fill in. Pour out the old oil in the bottles that she borrowed, and fill it up with the new. There's that, casting out evil and fear enables truth to outweigh error. That's a quote from the book I quote a lot, Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. Casting out evil and fear enables truth to outweigh error. So we can do that. And we can have patience with ourselves in the process of doing that. Because casting out evil and fear, sometimes casting out fear is not a very quick proposition. If we've held on to a belief about ourselves for years, casting that off can feel like throwing off our own identity. It can feel like I don't want to cast that off. I'm like chopping off my arm. It's like putting a piece of me off in a corner. But not if we recognize that false sense of ego is not who we are. No matter how accustomed we are to thinking that's us, and we're afraid to cast it off, casting that off is going to leave room for seeing who you truly are. So having patience with yourself with this process. It's not always easy. It is simple, but it's not always easy. And that's okay. So I don't want to be, I don't want to like bring the energy down in the room here, but I do want to say there's hope. There's hope. So be patient and allow yourself the grace to say, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. And sometimes when I'm really afraid and it takes me a couple of days to get out of that funk of fear, that's okay. No one's judging you. And God certainly doesn't see you as less than. So you don't have to see yourself as less than. There's the idea of that goes along with patience is that level of, and we talked about it the other day, of like committing, like maintaining that level of, what does Mrs. Eddy say? Maintain the facts of Christian Science. Maintain the facts of these spiritual laws that are in effect, that spirit is God, right? And therefore, you can't be sick, you can't be lacking, you can't be fearful. Like maintain the fact that you are supported and that truth is ever present. And maintain that so that when truth has its way with your thought, when truth seeps in, when the Christ consciousness uplifts your thought to see the reality, there's space for that. Maintain the fact that that is occurring, right? That is the reality. And hold your ground. Here's the other part of that. Hold your ground with the unshaken understanding of truth and love, and you will win. So have patience that doing these things, taking these little steps, going out and borrowing from your neighbor, metaphorically speaking, borrowing the idea of someone else, Christ consciousness, borrowing the thought that you are better than you think you are, or that you've been thinking you are. Borrow that thought that you are healthy and that you are inspired and that you do have abundance and that you are unlimited and that source is ever present. Borrow that thought and just take it in and pour into that. And then you do have abundance, and all of the things that you borrowed for a moment become your reality, because that is your reality. But sometimes you have to try on the thought because you're not used to thinking it. Just try it on and then maintain it. Try on the thought that's the better thought, and have patience with yourself in the process of doing that. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to try on the thought of seeing yourself as pure and perfect and healthy and sustained and supported. Okay, let's bring it in. Okay, there's a thought that I want to share. You know, the being faithful over a few things, I will make thee rulers over many, comes to mind. We're in the process of doing some construction, and we just poured the footings and are about to pour the slab for this garage that's being built. And the amount of detail that goes into just the foundation, the gravel and the sand and the different layers of things and the pipes and the wires and the drainage and all the details that goes into what looks like a very simple chunk of concrete that you end up looking at. Underneath the ground, there's a ton of stuff that goes on. Every little detail of our foundation in thought is important, because without that perf pipe and the rain coming, it's like it wouldn't drain, and then it would erode, and then the foundation wouldn't be secure. Every little detail of what you're overcoming in thought, in the foundation of your thought, is important. Take the thought, I don't want to say time, because it's not time, but take the focus and the attention on everything that comes up that needs to be addressed, every little fear, every little annoyance, every little thing that comes up. Deal with it in the moment. Don't put it off. Deal with it in the moment and be done with it and cast it aside. Like, handle it, cast it aside. Recognize that whatever the belief is underlying that, you know the truth that counters it. Declare the truth, accept the truth, put that little brick in your foundation and cast off the belief and know that that's gone now. And you don't have to keep going over it, over and over and over it. Put it aside and pay attention to every little detail so that your foundation is solid. And then when you build the house, it's like, you know, when you're actually building a house, once you get the foundation done, the framing goes up really fast. It's like, oh, and then you see like this spurt of growth. And then it seems to take forever with all the internal little details that go on. But the same thing happens in our growth. Lots of little detail, building the foundation as secure. Then you'll see a spurt of growth. And then you have to be patient again. And you have to be really patient. We've even had to be patient with the footings were done. It's like, okay, now there's like this whole other process. And then the slab. So there are periods of we need to be patient. Well, the same is true with our own growth and understanding. And it's not time. It's thought, attention, heart, humility, intuition, commitment, constancy. It's those things. It's not time, because all of that can happen in a holy instant, just like when we have instantaneous healings. Sometimes you get that aha, and a whole bunch of beliefs just went flying out the door. You can let go of in an instant, and then you never have to look back. And know that you never have to look back. Once you know something, you don't unknow it. Just saying. That's actually kind of a cool concept. All right, well, thanks for being here. Lots of love. I did go a little long. Those of you visiting, if you haven't set up an appointment, I would love to chat and get to know you. Those of you who are on the invoice thing, you'll be getting an email, and then you'll get the October password. Those of you who are not on invoice, just go to lisataylorcs.com and sign up for next month. All right. Love you guys. So much love. See you tomorrow.